Hello everyone, it's Greg Daly here from RPM Technik, and we've got another one of our podcasts to have a listen to. So here with me today is a very special guest in Tim Harvey.
I'm here every time.
Have we ever done one before? So we haven't got a particularly sort of marketing type topic to talk about today. We're just having a chat about cars because we can, and we can choose what we want to talk about. So this actually came about because I was looking at the Porsche configurator the other day and looking at how much a Turbo S is these days. And it's the car that for most people can do absolutely everything in one car. And I thought, well, hang on, for the same amount of money, around sort of 150 grand plus minus, will allow a little bit of flex. What three cars could you actually get for the price of one?
Yeah, that's a good question. And 150 grand is a challenging budget to get three interesting cars out of.
That sounds bad, but it's true.
It is true, because they've got to be different cars. But having said that, three cars as opposed to one is sounding like a win-win situation to me.
Agreed.
And I've already picked a daily, a track car come toy, and a more practical family car. But you could pick sort of any three cars if you wanted. You could pick an older, a classic car, for example.
Yep.
One which could still qualify as your toy, come investment car, come whatever. You've got to have a daily in there. There's got to be a daily in there of some kind.
Well,
so
this is the interesting thing. It can be whatever three cars that you like.
Yeah.
But also, we should probably put some context into this, that it's December 2021. So if someone listens to this in 5 years' time and listens to the price of the cars that we're talking about, we might be woefully out.
True.
But, go on then, kick us off with your first one, Tim. What would be your first choice if you got given 150k?
Right, well, I'm going to go with my daily, because we'll come on to the toys and the specials or whatever a bit later. And I was a bit torn, and it really will come down to the money side of it, and we'll have to do some maths in our head later to work out whether we can have these cars or not.
Yep.
But I mean, I've actually gone with what my current daily is, which is a BMW M4. I know.
Yeah.
Or an M3, not the new version, not the G80 ugly grille version.
The big grille version, yeah.
The previous version, which I know you can get for between 40 and 50 grand.
Oh yeah,
Okay?
easily. Yeah, 35 to 40.
Sorry, look,
yeah.
I'm a retail customer, not a trade buyer. So stop judging it. What you're saying is I've already paid too much for my car.
You should come and see me, but yeah.
And it's horses for courses. But for me, I keep coming back to M3 type cars in terms of their size, power, weight, comfort, performance. It's the ideal package for me.
Yep.
And I'm currently in an M4 and loving it. The other one I had as a daily though is a car I drove recently here, which I've actually never owned, and it's a 991.1 GTS.
Okay. Yep.
I owned a 991.2 GTS, which of course is the turbo version. But having sampled recently the previous generation, the normally aspirated 430 horsepower one, I actually could use one of those as a daily.
Right.
So that's my option, but it's a bit more money, isn't it?
They're two fairly different cars, aren't they? So we've got a turbocharged proper four-seater and a naturally aspirated 2 plus sort of smaller two. Staying on brand, bravo. Why, out of all of the non-Porsche stuff, if we look at the M3, M4 first of all, why them in particular? What's so good about them compared to say a C63 or a, I don't know what the alternative from Audi is?
I've had C63 before. I've had R8. I've had Audi RS4s. I like the interior and the iDrive system and the rear-wheel drive, limited slip diff. I just like the setup of the BMW, if I'm honest. The other cars in isolation have been good. I mean, I once had an RS4, the B7 V8 variety, four-door, and I think that was probably the best four-door saloon I ever owned.
They are bucks
to
run.
They are big money.
So
But if they made a brand new one now, still under warranty for the price of the originals, and I definitely had one of those. They were a great car, but yeah, they consumed brakes and adaptive dampers and lots of other issues, but they were a great car. But I just like the BMW architecture, feel, everything else about it. Yes, I'm a BMW man as much as I'm a Porsche man, in fact, but I have tried other things as well. Yeah. So that's a comfort zone for me. But I love my 911s. And, you know, if we're not talking GT3 RSs, which we're not for this kind of budget, we're talking about trying to get 3 good cars. Yeah. The 991.1 comes closest to having a bit of GT3 feel, because it's normally aspirated, revs to 8,000 revs, and it's a really usable car. So that would tear me, if you like, towards a Porsche rather than the BMW. But it would sort of depend on how many miles I was doing and everything else.
And the use, yeah. And it's interesting point you raised there, because you tend to find with, as you know, brands, and we'll talk about Porsche in particular, as brands bring out new models, you know, every 3-5 years, you tend to find the cars that are about 6 years old, people just kind of forget. And it was interesting watching you drive those 2 cars, and we've got a video that's probably on YouTube already, comparing the Gen 1 and Gen 2 GTSs. It was really interesting listening to you getting out of the car and going, good Lord, that is a great car. And it's like, it's always been a great car, but people forget. And because of YouTube and Instagram and all the latest things always coming out, there's some real gems that are just totally forgotten. And it's only when people get in them and drive them, and then they wake up and realise how good they are. But I have approached this in a very different way.
Go on then.
I've been selfish.
Okay. So is there no daily?
There's no daily.
Okay.
Well, actually,
there's no daily and daily.
Absolutely not. No. I have approached it is that we are living in some kind of fictitious unicorn land where I don't have to worry about the weather in this country.
Right.
So,
okay.
I suppose if we're going to talk about a daily, I've chosen a 3.2 Carrera.
Okay.
As a daily driver.
Okay.
So if we lived in California or somewhere hot, warm and dry, we wouldn't need to worry about the thing dissolving. To be honest, they're not that bad, but you really wouldn't want to drive a 3.2 every day. So my logic being, I've got 3 small kids, they just about fit in it. So for this conversation right now, they would fit in it, so I could drive it daily. They're about the cheapest or least expensive of their air-cooled cars when you look at purchase/running cost. And as we get into faster and faster cars, that sort of era of car where it's no faster than a hot hatch these days, really, is it? But it's just got so much character in it that you can bumble along like we know at 30-50 mile an hour, and it's a laugh. And
what sort of year?
Well, it's got to be my birth year. It's got to be 85.
Yeah.
So it's like a thing people do with watches, isn't it? They buy a watch from their birth year. So I'd have an 85 3.2 Carrera. I think I'd have to go black. Yeah. The wider width Fuchs. Yeah. No spoiler. Yeah. So just the clean silhouette. And as standard as possible, I think. Okay. I just think that sort of car you could put. And you sometimes see it on Pistonheads or other advertising websites available. Cars that have done like 400,000 miles. Yeah. And you think, God, that's just epic. Didn't you have one?
I did. I was going to say that, but I was letting you finish. But of course, the thing you've got to remember, it was my first 911 was a 3.2 Carrera. Yeah. And it's the car I absolutely loved. I did 120,000 miles in it, and it's a story I always tell about the last mile was as pleasurable as the first. Yep. I absolutely love that car. And I think, again, one of the things we forget is that back in those days, they didn't have as much power as current cars, like you say, but you could use all of it. Yep. And using all of the power of a car and being able to drive it to what you feel is nearer its limits is far more rewarding than having your, if you like, 992 Turbo S that you use a fraction of its power and you never really explore the car's limits. Yeah. There's an often used saying about it's more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car at the same speed because you're getting more out of it. And I think in terms of 911 enjoyment, you've probably hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
But you probably would need to be in California and find a non-deteriorated car to kick off with.
Yeah, and do you know what? That's such a valid point, because I've got a key to an Audi RS3 in front of me, which I've been I had to drive for the last couple of days, and no hardship, but it's got a little display on the dashboard, and it shows you the percentage, and people listening may have these as well, and percentage of torque and power that you're using.
Yeah.
And my commute to work, I'm quite lucky, is very short. It's, I don't know, 10 miles, 15, 20 minutes or something like that. And I think for 80% of the journey, I was using about 10 to 15% of the power. Yeah. And people might listen and go, try harder, pal. But you can't. You just genuinely can't. I mean, that thing, I have no idea how much power it's got. 300 or 400 power. 400
horsepower, I think, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And DSG box and...
Four-wheel drive,
and I wanted to like it, and I did like the noise. It's a 5-cylinder.
Yeah, that's the best thing about it. Is the engine. Yeah,
but it's like, it makes these funny noises when you change gear, and I was just like, it's cool, but it's just different, I suppose. Yeah. But anyway, we digress slightly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd have a rusty old 3.2.
And what would that cost out of your budget?
Well, I would allow 60 for that.
Wow.
Which I think would get you a good quality one. But that in itself, coming out of my mouth, sounds like crazy talk. Because I remember 2012, we were buying and selling them between 8 and 12 grand.
Oh, I couldn't give mine away. I could not give mine away when I was trying to sell it.
And do you know what? The other thing I think about those cars is that back in that sort of era, so 10, 12 years ago, fair play to the people that maintained and looked after them, because they weren't doing it for the same reason people are now.
Yeah, true.
Because you'd look at that car back then, and even back then, you know, to do an engine build, you might get away with, I don't know, 5 to 8 grand.
Yeah.
So we're talking 2/3 of the car's value.
Yeah.
If it needed kidney bowls and, you know, the usual suspects done, you could do that again. So guys and girls were buying these things, maintaining them properly, you know, if they were maintaining them properly, and a lot weren't. But, you know, they were putting good money into these things for no financial gain.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's a good point, actually. They were doing it for the enthusiasm of owning a 911.
Yeah.
And that made it worth it. The other thing, of course, is you'd need to be in California, because as far as I can remember, none of the heating or cooling works.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is very true. And actually, no aircon, yeah, you're going to be...
You could move the levers and do everything, but nothing really made much difference.
No difference, no. I'd be losing even more weight.
Maybe I should get one.
So that's my second selfish choice. So I've spent 60 on my 150. I'm down to 90 left. What's your second choice?
When I've only spent 40 to 60 or 70, haven't I?
I'll give you 40.
40.
Yeah, okay. I'll get you a nice one.
40 to 60. I've spent 40 to 60. My second choice, and at this point you need what I consider a toy, a track car, really a track car, because I'm always going to want to be on track in something. And as I say, you can't have a GT3 RS. And as this is cars, not motorbikes, because if it was motorbikes, it'd be very easy, because I could pick a...
Let's come on to that.
I could pick a brand new superbike and get, or a second-hand superbike for sort of 15 grand and get the ultimate, effectively. But cars, it's not quite so easy.
Good.
So, and bearing in mind I'm trying to go down the value for money for enjoyment route, I would have a Caterham. I'd have a Caterham.
I would have never predicted you saying that.
No, they're great.
Expand.
An R400, R500, not a 620. That's just power and spec.
Right, okay.
But they are great cars. For the money. They're not practical. And if you drove it on the road, you drive 50 miles down the road and you want to throw it in a hedge. But for, excuse my French, shits and giggles and track days, bloody fantastic.
So how much is one of these R400, 500, 600, whatever they are?
Well, given the budget, and a good R500 Superlight is going to be thick end of 35 grand to get a good one. 35 grand to get a really good one. But that's a 263 horsepower. So named R500 because it's 500 bhp per ton, effectively. That's a real weapon of a track car and a toy.
I think I'd still rather have a bike.
Yeah, but this is a car podcast, Greg. It's a car. You could probably I might have enough money for a bike left over.
We are going to come back to that. Yeah. But okay, so it's literally just a track car. That is.
Well, no, you'd use it, for going down.
This is your choice, mate. It's fine.
No, I would have it road registered and still use it on the road. I'd probably drive it to tracks as well. Not too far. Probably wouldn't go to the ring in it. But no, I would definitely. I would have it still as a road usable car because my cars have to be road usable. I can't. I just
trailer.
I don't want to trailer too much, and I don't want to. Have a car I can't use.
Yeah.
So,
no, I know.
Otherwise, I'd just buy a race car.
Yeah. Do you know what? Of all of the cars I've been very, very lucky to drive over however long it's been, I've never driven one.
Haven't you?
Not even a Bobby Basic one.
It's the nearest thing to driving a road legal single seater, apart from an Aerial Atom or something like that, which of course is, or a back mono, which is mega money. We're talking simple stuff. This is like driving a powerful Formula Ford car. You can see the wheels. You're in a nice tight little cockpit. All the controls are. I would call it Lotus-like in terms of feel and touch and feedback. You get tremendous feedback from the steering, the tyres, the brake. You can really feel the connection between the chassis and the road. It's the purest form of driving a road car that's as near to a single seater, if you like, but without spending stupid amounts of money.
And I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you could probably maintain that yourself. Are they that sort of
largely, you can. Yeah, largely you can. But the knowledge and the history, and there are lots of good Caterham Lotus specialists about who could help you, and there's tons of track day knowledge and race teams, because there are more Caterhams out there racing almost than, well, probably just less than Radicals are probably the only thing more of numerically.
Well, they're always quick whenever we're on circuit with what we take along, but it's just getting wet and cold.
Yeah, but this is.
Are we in California still?
I've got other cars for that now.
No, fair enough.
It's almost like having a motorbike in a car. It's almost like having a four-wheel motorbike, because it's great fun and thrilling and exciting.
Yeah, well, mate, these are your choices, so fair enough. My second one, people might go, but my second one would be a GT4.
Right.
Reason being is it fits in the budget.
Yeah.
And we were very lucky to have one back in 2016, which we did. I think we had for 16 months, and we did 16,000 miles in. It was a club sport. Took it all around Europe, did track days, and some lucky person out there still owns it. It's a light green one with ceramics and club sport. The only one that was spec like that. I think maybe I've chosen that one because I love that car so much. We had such a laugh with it. It just did so many. And I think that's the thing, you sometimes have really good memories with a car, and then you have a big soft spot for them. But it's also because I just thought, and Darren and Ollie kind of disagreed with me slightly here, is that that was the first, what I would call proper car, that I ever drove hard on circuit. And obviously maintained it properly, blah, blah, blah. But it was what Porsche designed it for. It was to get younger people into the brand, into GTs as the gateway drug up to GT3s and 2s and whatever. But I just found that it was a lovely car to learn to really start pushing on with, and it never did anything that frightened me. It wasn't too fast. You know what it's like with a bike. We've touched on bikes a couple of times, but sometimes you'll get on a litre bike and it's, even a 600, but you'll kind of gulp a little bit sometimes, and it can be a little bit like that with certain 911s where they're a bit trickier to push up to the 100% point. And I'm not saying that you even got near probably the limits of what that GT4 could do, but it felt really lovely. It felt approachable.
The interesting thing is that you then went into a 996 GT3.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you look back, how do the two compare in terms of enjoyment for value for money?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question, actually, because on paper they're very similar in terms of BHP, power to weight ratio, all that sort of stuff. And what I found was that with the GT4, you could make the odd mistake, even with the traction control off. You could make the odd mistake or take the wrong line, and as you know, I'm no racing driver, but it never felt like it was gonna.
It's a more forgiving car. It's mid-engine. It's more forgiving. It's got a better weight distribution. It's more forgiving.
And I think it was brand new to us at that point. So it was quite nice that everything was under warranty. Everything was fresh. There was no wear on anything. So,
and you'd need something like that, bearing in mind that you've got a 3.2 Carrera
you've got
sitting
something in a yang,
that's mostly being worked on.
It's true, not by me. And so yes, to compare the two of them, GT4 very very approachable, lovely, easy to use. The 996 I find is harder work in a nice way. You know, every time
it's a more raw analog experience, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think I've got the best from it at all yet. And I did a fair amount of track work in it last year, and we did 6,000 miles. I mean, I did a few mods to it, so it's not standard. But I always get out of it thinking, I don't really think I've done that car justice. And I think that's what excites me about it and wants me to go back more. And the fact it's not got traction control, it's not really... You know, in this day and age with everything having so many driver aids, I thought I'd think about it more, but I don't. And I think that's potentially made me personally a better driver, because you're not relying on anything. So, you know, we did together we did quite a few wet track days this year, which are my favourite. And in particular, the ones that stood out were Goodwood in the wet. First time I'd ever driven Goodwood, and also not the first time I've driven there, but that wet day at Spa where there was oil on the track, there was hydraulic fluid, and you know the track was empty, and you know, it wasn't being Mr. Big Balls, but I just thought I've got to go out there and drive around in it, and it was, and again the car didn't do anything unpredictable, but kind of in the back of my mind somewhere I was like, just be careful.
Well, clearly you're not frightened of it, because doing Goodwood in the wet with no traction control in the 911 is you know, that's not for the faint-hearted.
Is it? Well, we're lucky, you know, we get to hang around with guys like yourself who can give us good advice about what lines to take and stuff, but it's I think I prefer to do it that way actually. Learn the track in the wet, be sensible, build up, because then by the time it dried you're just more comfortable. You know the
line already, you've got it intrinsically in your head. But you're soaking up a big chunkier budget now.
I know, mate. It's like I'm in 130. I've gone deep already. So I would have to probably, for 70 odd grand, that gets me into a sort of a higher mileage club sport, so 40,000 miler. But yeah, I just think they do everything, easy to run, good track car.
Okay. So now we move on to the third car. And
I'm getting the bus.
I'm in danger of needing something practical now, because if I have got a Caterham and a 911 for the GTS, I need something practical. Okay. And a car I've always liked is the KN GTS V8.
Ooh, interesting.
Now, I know this isn't really your baby, because you tend to be more sort of not SUV Porsche
mainly
side.
two doors.
But I just think they were a great car and had a good engine.
So we're talking the second generation one, aren't we?
V8. Mm-hmm. You're the Porsche man, aren't you?
I'm asking you.
So I'd probably have one of those, because I think you could pick one of those up reasonably. What sort of money do you think I'd pick one of those up?
I would have thought late teens, early 20s you can get into one of those.
Okay. Well, obviously we're going to have a good one. So let's say early 20s.
Yeah. Do you know what? Interesting story actually. About must have been about 5 or 6 years ago, when we used to sell a bit more Cayennes than we do now. My business partner Darren used to always do a lot more of the buying back then, and he'd always wander into my office with a little bit of a grin on his face, and I was like, oh God, what's he bought now? And he was right. He said, you will never guess what I've just bought. And I was like, go on, what have you just bought? And he bought I think it was a 2008 KN GTS manual.
Okay.
I thought he was joking. I didn't know they made a manual.
I didn't know they made a manual.
So anyway, Darren disappears up to the back end of nowhere to go and collect this thing, and comes back, and he said, there's another bit of a bonus about this car. I was like, go on mate, what? Has straight pipes on it. Oh, unbelievable. So I was like, okay, fine. And I thought, I'm going to be buried with this car. It's going to be with me till my 80s. And fair play to him, we sold it in about a week, and I remember taking it home, and at the time I lived in Bicester, and so it's 45-50 minutes home and back. I think the thing did about half a tank of juice. Bearing in mind they've got a 100-litre tank or whatever they've got. And my neighbours literally walked out, were like, what the is that? It was awesome for that journey.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would want to have driven it again. But
don't you think at this time of the year, and we're recording this sort of just pre-Christmas, so winter time, the roads are always dirty.
Yep.
You know, driving anything nice, it gets filthy. There's salt going to be down on the roads most of the time. It's not a nice time to be driving a car on the road.
Yeah.
And it's always at this time of year, I think, what I need is an SUV type vehicle that I can just smoke around in. It doesn't matter if it gets dirty. You can chuck everything in it. Yeah. And every winter I have this sort of chat, and I've had a few over the years. One of the best I ever had was actually a Range Rover with a John Eales Dakar 4.5 litre engine in it, which what reminded me of you saying about the straight pipes. That sounded absolutely glorious. But I think I could squeeze one of those into my 3-car garage, and I've still got a little bit of wiggle room left for a van and a motorbike.
But do you know what? It's a really good point you make about like a winter smoker, because those sorts of cars you buy going, I don't really care. No. I'm just going to use it, and actually you end up getting quite attached to it because you can park it anywhere, you can drive it through the salt, you can drive it in the snow, and it gets you out of a pickle, and and actually they're really good.
Yeah.
You know,
and for me, I actually love driving any vehicle. I can get pleasure out of driving any vehicle. So what I want primarily is variety.
Yep.
So, you know, I've got a Caterham for the sake of argument. I've got a strong 911 in a GTS 911.1. And then I've got something completely different that's both practical, usable, winter, whatever.
Yes.
Could be a tow car, could be anything. But it's the variety of driving that I like most of all, if I was going to stick to those sort of 3 cars.
Well, since we scribbled our homework down here before we started this conversation, bizarrely, I've also chosen an early Cayenne.
Have you?
I have.
Have you really?
However, mine is slightly different. I don't know if anyone's seen in America. There's a bit of a thing at the moment where the guys are taking Gen 1 Cayennes, so inverted commas, the ugly one, the sort of overly type headlamp, which incidentally I think is actually starting to look cool again. Your face doesn't tell me that you agree. And you can pick them up in the UK for 5 to 10 for a really good one. And for a few quid they will put jacked up suspension on, big knobbly tyres on them, and then use them for green laning or whatever they call it in America. They've got we're in this fictitious unicorn land, so we've got the desert and we've got the Mojave or whatever it's called. But I just think, as you just literally said, you took the words out of my mouth, is that you want variety, and you kind of I've got an old cool classic 3.2 here. You've got a GT4 for doing the track day stuff, and then you turn up in this KM with straight pipes, big knobbly tyres, and people might make some conclusions about it.
It's starting to sound like the RPM VW Transporter on its knobbly tyres.
That is an infamous vehicle. Everyone loves that.
But clearly you're emigrating because 2 of your cars are for America. So when are you leaving us?
Well, this one actually works okay in the UK because hopefully it wouldn't dissolve. I'm sure with that kind of suspension and tyre setup, it would be able to take Tree High Street. And it's different.
And also, you needed a cheap car because you hadn't got much money left, had you?
That is the main thing. So I've got 2 potentially very unreliable, expensive cars, and one car which actually I'll probably be driving all the time.
Exactly. Which will be the GT4. I think you've got a pretty good garage there. I think it's a pretty good garage.
Interestingly, we chose the same at the end there, a Cayenne.
And neither of us have ever had any kind of conversation about this whatsoever. You were the last person I would have expected to have got
I know,
one of those.
and I said I'd be selfish, but it kind of is. We've actually run a few Cayennes as company cars over the years to do towing for race cars and this, that, and the other. And hand on heart, they've always been brilliant. I think maybe we over maintain them, service a thing every 3 months.
Is that actually possible with a Cayenne?
Yes. But the only thing I think I would have to stick with is got to be a petrol. Couldn't go with
I agree
the devil
with that,
fuel.
Obviously.
But I actually also had written down a motorbike.
Well, we're sort of getting beyond the realms of our 3-car garage. Can we just we'll say that's our 3-car garage, but now we're just having a little indulgence.
I've probably got enough left for a tank of fuel, so I've pushed mine. So your indulgence being?
I would have a superbike. It would have to be probably a BMW S1000RR or a track-based Honda Fireblade or something like that.
Of all the modern crop of superbikes, I've not ridden a S1000RR. I've been on it for Yonks now, isn't it? It's its second iteration of it, but they just seem like the GT3 of bikes, don't they?
They are fantastic. I mean, I currently own an S1000R, which is the flat-barred naked version of the RR in a slightly softer state of tune. But I have owned an HP4, which is the carbon version, and they're just brilliant bikes. You know, they are absolutely brilliant, fantastic in terms of accessible performance. They're just brilliant. Well, they're not as exotic as a Ducati or an Aprilia or something like that, but we haven't got that kind of money left in our budget.
Well, you've got more than me left, but yeah, I mean, because for those who listening may or may not be interested in bikes, but since probably mid 2010, 15 onwards, traction control became introduced to these to the bikes, which, you know, and anyone that's even ridden a modern 600 will, you know, attest that's plenty of grunt. But the traction control systems in these are like different level. I just can't get my head around how these guys calibrate those systems, so they don't turf you off.
Well, they're not perfect. You know, you can still send yourself off, but you know, the reason they need it is because the bike's got so powerful. So your 1000cc superbike of say 1992. When the Honda Fireblade first came out, had 125 horsepower. Well, a 600 has that now, and the superbike, a 1000cc superbike, has 200 horsepower. So they needed to control it somehow. But the traction control, lean control, ABS, everything else that's part and parcel of it is very sophisticated and has genuinely filtered down from racing. That's the best thing. Some, you know, bike racing to road bikes is very close.
Yeah, because there was, I think it was Guy Martin, was it? They did that thing on ITV4 where they had the F1 car and the S1000R, and wasn't it to a ton? They were about the same, and then after that the F1 car pulled away. But anyone again who's never been into bikes or read anything about them, you know, 200 horsepower obviously doesn't sound an awful lot when we've got 600 horsepower RS6 Avants these days, but 100 horsepower
in a bike it is.
it literally, you know, to hold on to the bloody thing is a bit of an effort. But
and I know, like us, a lot of people who are into their cars are into bikes as well. So,
there's a real crossover of things. But I would probably be seduced into just taking finance out then. Actually, finance on bikes is great. Anyway, I would get the new V4S Ducati.
Very nice.
I saw the video of it the other day from the guys at 44 Teeth, and I couldn't get over how easy it looked. I know it's a video, but how easy it looked to ride the thing hard. Now I'm sure, it would be a different story sat on top of it. But the other thing I couldn't get my head around so often, he was banging it into first and just using
loads
all of
reps.
First gear. I was like.
But racers do that, you know. Car drivers, you only ever use first to pull away, so it's not in your head to even use first for a corner. But bikes, the gearing is generally very long, so and first gear will usually do 60, 70 miles an hour. So actually, any corner slower than that, you should be in first gear.
And they must have such a sweet throttle, map on that thing, so that you can meter out, because as you know, first gear you can hoist a wheelie easily. So, and Harry was just getting on it. We digress. But so I've kind of actually spent 175, 180 of that. But
in the tradition of car enthusiasts, you always spend more than you've got.
That's it. Ask for forgiveness, not permission. And on that note, we shall keep our car chatter coming.